But the big positive that I see is that it's a fantastic opportunity to realign rugby globally. To provide something and build something that you can start from scratch, because the whole game has come to a standstill, and we've got the time now to be able to plan and put something in place. Improve the product that we have and make it something that's attractive to the viewers, to viewerships, and to live spectators again. So it's an interesting time. We haven't emphasized it enough today that it will be different, and that our new normal will certainly not be what we used to.
I think obviously every year, especially over the last few years with Super Rugby growing and sort of taking over your whole season, that and Test match rugby, we sort of, lost track of what we really want to see, because every weekend there's games and it carries on seemingly from Friday morning till Sunday afternoon. Where I watched the episode of the Isolation Nation guys in New Zealand, and they were calling for long tours back into South Africa. Well, if there's a global season, which means there's dedicated slots for tours a month, we can have these proper long tours, and they won't come across every year. They'll be every third year. But imagine as a spectator, for us, we can actually go with South Africa, travel New Zealand, because you can't travel with, a Test match championship, because the traveling is just too frantic, or even a Super Rugby tour is just too frantic. So, yes, I think massive changes. I like the North South idea. And that came about, rugby league, they don't really have an international season. So that was like their form of international. I know, like when my parents and them, when your dad was playing, they played in the isolation in the 80s, and they had massive trials, and like sort of, it was almost like sort of North South. And I remember when we were under 21 under Jake White, we had our two national sides, so the two South African rugby sides, the A and the B side, the gold and green side, or whatever they were called. But then the other teams that was competing against us, the other two teams, was a Highveld side and a coastal side, which was inherently a north versus south thing. So I reckon, the norm for rugby is going to change. But what it will do is force us to look at rugby differently. I reckon the amount of professional rugby players is going to be trimmed down massively. The season's going to be trimmed down. We're just going to become a bit more economic viable. We're not going to have 400 professional rugby players within South Africa. That number is going to be a lot smaller. Same in Europe. But let's hope we survive that. And I think, like all of us, what we are craving is watching live sport. And whatever goes with that. Going to the pub, meeting up with your mates. Watching a bone-crunching tackle, the sound of rugby, the smell of rugby, grass, deep heat. All of that, we're getting withdrawal symptoms. I'm definitely getting it. So let's hope.
My knees are starting to hurt once you start talking about all those tackles and stuff. I was when there was a big game or a big tournament, I usually got injured. And even today, before the filming of this, I got up with a stiff neck. So, I just can't get rid of these injuries. But rugby will be different.